And when we come back, how to take control of the neighborhood. Stay with us for Cover Story.
Next on Cover Story, when crack dealers moved into this house, the neighborhood bombed them with bylaws.
It could be Al Capone living in a house and no one can really do anything about it. But if you have an overhang that's an inch outside of the zoning variance, you can have your house mowed down.
Driving the drug dealers out when Broadcast 1 returns.
Drug dealers on the street, drug addicts on a high, and the police handcuffing the suspects on the sidewalk. Familiar images in recent weeks. Police crackdowns have boosted cocaine trafficking charges, but what is the result? Well, some of the dealers have left the gritty streets and set up shop in houses in neighborhood communities. And tonight on Cover Story, what happens when the residents say, no, not in my neighborhood? Duncan McHugh now with the tale of two neighborhoods.
Isn't there a machine that can take the moss out?
Well, we could power rake it, but...
Andy Latta and his father Cecil have a problem with garden moss.
Well, you get that with the trees.
Cecil has lived here over 30 years.
I've just sort of left it there.
Andy recently moved back home with his two children. It's a quiet New Westminster neighborhood, full of kids and seniors. Very Leave It to Beaver.
Well, this is done well over here.
But moss isn't the Latta's only problem. They say they have some very undesirable neighbors.
We've never had anything like this go on before. We've got strange people banging on houses at all hours of the morning. We've got extra traffic in the neighborhood now coming and going from this house.
Others in Andy's neighborhood won't speak on camera, but they have a long list of complaints. Needles in the alley, police at the house at late hours, and some very serious allegations.
They carried on heat. We've got people that are obviously buying a drug product from this house and then using it in the neighborhood. We don't need this kind of thing in our neighborhood.
We can't show you the house because the New Westminster police confirm that they're still investigating the premises. Andy and his neighbors feel the police are doing their best, but the problem is getting worse.
There was an evening where they took the fellow away from that house, and we thought that this was going to be a resolution, but the next morning he was back again, obviously out on bail or release or whatever the situation was.
People in the neighborhood want the tenants evicted. The owner of the house told us she would do something if she believed there was a problem, but she says the tenants are clean and tidy and rent is always paid on time. Lower Mainland police have made a big show lately of getting drugs off the streets, but many say all that's happening is the dealers are moving inside. Here in Vancouver, police don't keep statistics on the number of problem houses. But Constable Steve Callender says there are 35 in his Mount Pleasant district alone.
Constable Callender.
We're not free just to walk into a house if somebody says there's drug dealing going on. I mean, we have to build a case. It's time consuming, and it's not always perfect. It's a real drain on our resources.
You have a problem?
You're going to get a criminal element. There are a lot of car break-ins, house break-ins, theft of autos. The house itself is going to stick out like a sore thumb. And people in the block will describe to you, if you talk to them, about how they don't feel secure in their own block anymore. They don't want to walk out of their own house, and they're quite scared.
What do you do when there's a drug house in your neighborhood? What can you do when the police say that their hands are tied? Well, people in this neighborhood face that very problem. And with a little bit of paper and a lot of help from a unique program run by the City of Vancouver, they managed to get the residents of a drug house out. That program is called Neighborhood Integrated Service Teams, or NIST, and that's how Marketisha's neighborhood got rid of their problem house.
There'd be constant traffic going through and people coming off Commercial Drive and walking up to the house, knocking on the doors, screaming for someone so they could come in, obviously needing to get a fix.
A constant stream of traffic, drug users, police and prostitutes, needles in the street and break-ins. Sound familiar? The police told Debbie Dewar there was really nothing they could do.
It was a quiet neighborhood. Now we're getting woken up at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock midnight with people screaming and yelling. There's always a police car outside of the house once a week, and so we decided we need to do something.
Debbie and Mark sent a petition to City Hall with 3 pages of names, and that got the city's property use department involved.
You could be Al Capone living in a house and no one can really do anything about it. But if you have an overhang that's an inch outside of zoning variance, you can have your house mowed down.
It was a citizen complaint.
Sid Kelland may seem unlikely to send drug dealers packing, but he carries a big stick, stacks and stacks of municipal bylaws.
We get involved because we deal with the license bylaw, zoning bylaw, standard maintenance bylaw, and the untidy premises bylaw.
Bags of grass clippings offended the untidy premises bylaw, reason enough to call the owner.
They are ultimately responsible with whatever happens to that property. They are the ones that we lay charges against. So whatever happens to that property, whichever bylaw is in violation, is the property owner who's held responsible and held accountable.
The owners didn't know about the problems in the house, and within 2 months, the dealers were evicted for not paying rent. Sid says 9 times out of 10, owners will cooperate because they face fines or court. What brought the file to his desk was a referral from NIST.
Children now play on our street, and it's quiet. There aren't drug dealers driving.
The new program run by the City of Vancouver brings together all branches of City Hall to try and tackle neighborhood issues like problem houses.
And we can work together as a team, so the police can apply their powers, and then we have our property use and permits and licensing, environmental health section under the City of Vancouver and the Vancouver Richmond Health Board. They have their powers, and the fire department have their powers.
It can take months for just one department to get enforcement on a problem house. Now a coordinated NIST team can move in quickly and get results in days.
Prior to NIST, it may have been a speedy memo that gets sent over, or perhaps a phone call with no real follow-up. But at least with the NIST teams, there's that team spirit and the sense that you're working together towards a common goal.
Instead of relying on police to tackle the symptoms of a problem house, a neighborhood can access the NIST team through City Hall or the library, who can get at the root of the problem. Back in New Westminster, life is going on, but
There's not that feeling of ease and security that we had before.
And in East Vancouver,
They did serious renovations on the house because it just wasn't habitable for the next people to move in. And now there's a young family like ours that's moved into the house, and it's great. We're really happy.
Markatisha feels safe again. The dealers have moved on to another community, another street, another house. For Broadcast One, I'm Duncan McHugh.